The last few days of free agency for the Pittsburgh Steelers have been slow, but that doesn't mean that they still don't have big needs on their roster that they have to fill before the draft starts and they hit into the next season. Yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers have made moves in free agency this offseason and also via trade, but it just seems as though there's been less moves this offseason in free agency alone, not trades, free agency alone, than last offseason. It could just be a feeling, but it just feels as though there's been less moves made, especially over the last week. With that being said, there's really a lot of holes on this roster in terms of depth or even starters that the Pittsburgh Steelers still need to address at certain positions. Or maybe they did already address it, but they need to readdress it because of the lack of depth in the area. So I'm going to go through all the positions they still need to address and the top options at the positions as well. But before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you get notified with all Pittsburgh Steelers news, with new additions and everything like that. Also, make sure you like the video. Let's get right back into it. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's start off at the main position they've not addressed yet this offseason. Center. They really need a center. Whether that's free agency, the draft, or whatever it is, that's a position that they need to fill. Because as of right now, they do not even have a center on the roster. They cut Mason Cole, and now they have no center that could snap the ball at a high level who's done it in this league for a while. Yes, they can move guys around that's on the offense line right now, like James Daniels. He has experience doing it, but obviously you wouldn't want to move him. You would want a natural center. So that's a position that they need to fill. Also, another position that they need to fill is maybe even offensive tackle, right tackle. Omar Khan, we heard him speak at the beginning of free agency, basically saying that they plan on moving Broderick Jones back to left tackle, his natural position. So what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to move your left tackle who played there the last 3 seasons in Dan Moore to right tackle, which doesn't make sense because why would you move him and not just keep Broderick Jones at right tackle, in which they did last season? But if they are moving Broderick Jones back to left tackle, then they have to pick up a right tackle, whether that's via free agency or the draft. So that's a hole that they have on their roster as well that they need to fix. And one guy who could fix that is Becton of the Jets. He's a big guy. He's an offensive lineman who's played, and it just seems as though he's been battling injuries, which kind of made his career so far with the Jets and in the NFL not so great. But he's a person who could come in, Mekhi Becton at tackle, and be a really solid run blocking player. He's a huge guy as well. He was the 11th pick in the 2020 NFL draft and is still just 24 years old. The New York Jets gave up on him and released him after a disappointing last season. In the Jets offense, he was much better pass protector than run blocker, but because of his size and his weight, he's a guy who could really do well in the run game, I believe. So if he's already good in the pass game, I truly believe he can improve on the run game. So that's a position the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of need to look at, whether that's a free agency or the draft. Another position that they need to look at is a cornerback. Yes, they addressed it a little bit, but they still released or let 2 guys walk. Levi Wallace walked, and then they released Patrick Peterson, and they really only added Dante Jackson back. So there's still a need for a cornerback on this team. Right now, you have Dante Jackson and also Joey Porter Jr. Those are your 2 starters. Obviously, you could add someone in the draft who could be the starter, but you would still need to add someone in free agency just in terms of depth. And the best person available at that spot is cornerback Xavier Heyward. Xavier Heyward is a 4-time Pro Bowl selection and has led the NFL in interceptions twice in his career. So he's someone who could come in and be a veteran on this team, but not just a veteran. He could still play at a very high level. Just like Becton, he's been dealing with some injuries the past few seasons, but he still plays at a very high level. And the only reason why Miami cut him was because of his cap space and the hit that they would take in terms of it. Not because of his play on the field, because he's still a really solid cornerback and can guard and cover wide receivers with the best of them. So he's someone who could come in and really help this cornerback room and be a big-time playmaker for the Steelers at that position. But either way, whether they add him or someone else in terms of depth, they still need to address the cornerback position based off of who they have on their roster right now. So that's cornerback. Now looking at wide receiver. Wide receiver is a position that they already addressed in terms of they added someone, but they still need to readdress it in terms of depth. They added Van Jefferson this offseason, but they still need to add more players at that position because they only have Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, and George Pickens. Other than that, usually they go into the season with 5 on the roster or maybe even 6. So they still need to add players, whether that's the draft or free agency. The top player available is wide receiver Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup was released by the Cowboys, once again, because of cap reasons. So even though his price tag may be a hefty price in terms of other wide receivers available on the market, getting a guy like him who even is coming off of injury. All these guys have been either released or coming off of injury that I've named in terms of the top players available. But that doesn't mean that the Steelers are not going to take a risk on them. We know the Steelers kind of take risks on players if they feel as though that the injury is not going to reoccur and not hold them back. There's also other wide receivers out there like Odell Beckham Jr., whose maybe price tag will be a very bit lower since he was also released by the Ravens, and he's getting older and older, and he's getting later to the portion of his career. So maybe he comes in and takes a less pay cut to play with the Steelers. Who knows? But there's wide receivers out there that they still need to fill, whether that's outside receiver and inside receiver. They still need to fill both positions. Obviously, Tyler Boyd is still available as well, but I just haven't named him. But he's also been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers many times. So wide receiver is a big need. Another need the Steelers have is at the edge rusher position. Usually people just don't think of edge rushers as a need, especially because of TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and then Herbig that they have on the roster. But usually the Pittsburgh Steelers carry 4 edge rushers, and the 4th one last season was Marcus Golden. But Marcus Golden, as of right now, is testing free agency, so he's not on the roster or signed to it. He could still sign back later in the offseason in terms of getting a new contract with the team. But as of right now, they don't really have an edge rusher on the outside in terms of depth, a 4th one. So getting a guy who can really fill that role that the Pittsburgh Steelers need when TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, or whoever gets tired is a big difference maker. And one of the top players available is Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy has always been like a name kind of linked to the Steelers for some reason, even though I don't really see a natural fit there. He seems as more like a guy who could play inside and outside, but the Steelers like having a pure outside off the edge. So Kyle Van Noy is one of the bigger names, and he last played for the Baltimore Ravens, and it seems as though this offseason the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to add former Baltimore Ravens. So this would fit the bill right there. But obviously, me personally, I think getting Marcus Golden back is a big move because of how well he played last season and just a natural fit it seemed like he had when he was on the field replacing the injured player or the tired player. He was a natural fit and he played really well. So getting him back is not a big move, but it's a move that might have to be made. So edge rusher is still a need, and the Pittsburgh Steelers need to fill that role. So just kind of recapping the holes that they have on the roster, it's center, right tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, edge rusher, and I didn't mention it, but safety as well. They really only have Macus Patrick and Deshaun Elliott, Demonte KZ. Maybe adding another safety could be good, but they don't need to. But that's still a position maybe that they could upgrade if they really want to add someone who could help Macus Patrick and be his running mate. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot of needs on their roster. They still have not filled all of them, but the main one out of all those are center because they just don't have anyone on the roster right now who can snap the ball consistently and has played center for a while. So center is the main option, but the Pittsburgh Steelers have many other holes. Free agency has been a little bit dry recently in terms of players added through it. Yes, they made trades to make up for it, but free agency has been dry and not too many signings since basically the first week. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on this topic of the Steelers' biggest needs still remain on the roster. Do you believe that it is center, or do you believe it's a different position? And who do you believe they should sign in free agency that's still remaining. Or maybe you want them to make a trade. Let me know your trade that you want them to make. With that being said, let me know your thoughts. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on those notifications. Make sure you click that bell down below so you never miss out on anything Pittsburgh Steelers news, trades, free agency, draft news, everything is covered all here. So turn on notifications, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys all later. Till the next video, I'm out. Peace.